Hello and welcome to the Beanery. My name is Wendelica and I am the coffee roaster behind Bravewood Beanery. Today is St. Patrick's Day, and so we are going to be making some corned beef and cabbage. So we actually started a corned beef in the oven a couple hours ago, and I am going to I'll walk you through the process with a second one, and when we put that one in the oven, we'll take the first one out. So it'll be like magic. I hope it works like magic. I really do. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to take a corned beef that we bought from the grocery store, and we are going to sear it all over with a frying pan. So here I have a cast iron Dutch oven with a nice lid. And the lid is kind of important. If you don't have a pan with a lid, then you can use foil, but you do need to have this covered. So we have a corned beef brisket right here, and I need to open it up. I also need to heat up my pan. So let's get that going. Heat that up so that it's good and hot and we can get a good sear on our meat. And because the corned beef comes brined, we really don't need to add a bunch of oil or anything to the frying pan. I might add just a tiny little bit, but we're going to keep the liquid that's in the package, and we're just going to put it all in here, except we're going to remove the spice packet, of course. Before we put this in the pan, we might want to trim off some of the fat. It just depends on how fatty this particular one is. This one has a bit of fat on it. It's really not extreme. I think I might take a little bit of it off. So I'm just going to pick this piece of fat off, and I'm going to slice just the fat. And you can see there really isn't a whole lot of fat on this piece of meat. And you don't have to do this, but if you just cook it with the fat cap, it's going to be a very fatty, very greasy kind of roast. And maybe you like that, and maybe you don't. I'm just going to trim some of the fat out. And there's certainly going to be plenty of flavor in this brined piece of meat, even if I trim off this fat. There we go. Okay, so now my pan is good and hot, and I am going to set this down in it. There we go. And I'm just going to sear this until it's browned. I'm not trying to cook it here. I'm just trying to brown it and seal in the juice, the flavor, before we put this in the oven. I know the traditional way of cooking a corned beef is to cook it, boil it on the stove. I just really wanted to try and roast it this time. And I'm thinking that by searing this, I'm going to get a nice crust around the outside edge, and I think it's just going to be really, really extra tender and wonderful. At least that's my goal. So I'm going to hold this up on its edge and make sure I sear all the sides. And did you notice I forgot to put any oil in the pan? It's fine. It's really not sticking or anything. So it doesn't take too long. We don't need to get it really caramelized or anything. We just want to get it seared on the edge. Okay. It almost doesn't fit in this pan. It's a big piece of brisket. Okay, so I'm going to turn off my burner. I am going to add some water to this. And then I'm going to add the seasoning packet that came with it. And I really don't think that you need to completely submerge it. I think you need enough water in there that you know it's not going to cook dry. But I don't think you need to submerge it. So here we are sprinkling the seasoning packet contents on the meat and around the meat into the cooking liquid. Just like that. And then I am going to put the lid on and stick that baby in the oven. Oh, bonk. Okay, and I am going to use my oven mitts so that I don't burn myself. All right, so the oven is set at 350. And as I said before, I did put another brisket in the oven this morning, which I am taking out here. And then I will put this one in. Okay. And it needs to cook for about 2 hours. I don't remember if I said that or not, but there you go. 2 hours in the oven at 350. Make sure it's covered. And after a couple hours, then we're going to chop up the vegetables and add those in. So you need to see what this looks like right at this moment. It looks so good. Isn't that lovely? I have a feeling this is just going to really fall apart. Oh yeah, it's already falling apart tender. Perfect. So now that the meat is completely cooked, we're going to add the vegetables. And we're going to let the veggies roast for about an hour. Here we go. Except for the cabbage. We're not going to put the cabbage in quite yet, because we don't want our cabbage to just cook completely to mush. You wash my knife. Okie dokie. So I am going to cut up some onion and some carrots. I'm just using a yellow onion because that is what I had on hand. And it is going to be in the oven for a while, so I don't want to cut it into little itty bitty pieces. I'll just cut it into like chunks, you know. And we will spread this out on the roast, around the roast. And, oh, you are not sorry about that. We're just taking these chunks and putting them around the roast. We'll take the core out here with the little dried up brown bits on it. And we'll use the rest. Okay, and we will cut our carrots. give them a quick scrub. Now we will chop up these carrots. We're not going to chop them into small pieces. We're going to chop them into pieces about like that. And we'll just put it in the cooking liquid around the meat gently so we don't splash it on ourselves. And we'll put the foil back on and stick it back in the oven until the vegetables are about done. And then we will also add the cabbage, and we'll give it like 15 minutes or so with the cabbage in the pan. And that's it. That will be it for our corned beef and cabbage recipe. It's so easy. Okay, put the foil back on it, and we'll stick it back in the oven. And while that is cooking, we are going to cut our cabbage. And what I like to do is just cut it straight down in half, and then lay the cut side down, and do that again for both sides. And then I'm just going to cut, like with a diagonal cut that center heart out. Just like that. So now I have a wedge. Let's see. I'll pick this one better. I have a wedge with a little part of it trimmed off where the core was. And I might cut these one more time before I throw them in the pan. And I think that'll be good. There, now our cabbage is prepped and ready to go in the oven. You may have noticed that I forgot to put the potatoes in. So I am going to cut up the potatoes and add them to the pan right now before it gets any farther along in the cooking process. I'm just going to cut these into some decent sized chunks. Cut off any bad spots that might happen to be there. Oh, this one's not looking good. Ew. Okay. That one's going in the compost. I'll just cut the end off of that. Boy, I'm not impressed with these potatoes. And I think I'm going to wash one more potato to make up for that one that I tossed out. Cut that off. All right. Now that looks like a good old-fashioned corned beef, except that we're cooking it in the oven. There we go. put not the plastic wrap. Please don't use plastic wrap in the oven. Put the foil back over it and back into the oven with you. There we go. All right, now it can cook. I have 15 minutes left on my timer, so I am going to add the cabbage into my pan. Isn't that lovely? And we're just going to let these big old hunks of cabbage sit right here and steam with the meat and the potatoes and the carrots and the onions, and it's just going to be wonderful. Let's see if I can fit that last chunk in there. Okay. And I'm going to add some salt and pepper, I think, on top of the cabbage. Some salt. I know I don't need a lot of extra salt, but the cabbage would like a little bit of salt. Okay. We'll put its lid back on. And back into the oven it will go for its remaining 15 minutes of cook time. Okay. That looks so good. The cabbage is soft but not mushy, and actually I think that could cook for a few more minutes. But let's put a little bit on a plate or in a bowl. Let's do a bowl. I have my appropriately green bowl here. And I will take one of these slices of cabbage. Let's see. We'll just turn it like that. Get some carrots and a potato or two. Some of that onion. And we'll just pull some pieces of this corned beef right off of there. And it is just falling apart. There, doesn't that look gorgeous? And we'll give it a little taste and see what we think. That is really good. The carrots still have a nice texture to them. And the potato is done perfectly. Mm-hmm. The cabbage still has a little crunch to it. Mmm. And it goes just perfectly with the corned beef. So, I think this is a success. There. If you try this at home, be sure to tag me if you take any photos of it. Tag me on Instagram. Um, I am Bravewood Beanery on Instagram, and I would love to see your photos. And boy, I hope you enjoy this. I'm going to. Thanks for watching. Bye.